Although humans share 98% DNA with chimpanzees, we have a greater capacity to reason and the ability to forego eruptive emotion for rational and reciprocal thought. Yet, within the human population as well, one narcissist, someone with a mental disorder, can have devastating effects. In this episode, I will entertain a simplified scenario of an ancient turning point in human history that changed humanity forever. One must speculate on the exact details of these events, as the written word had yet been invented prior to the complexities that arose from life in the city-states. Because, believe it or not, writing is unnecessary for human survival. Though this beginning is speculated, the end result, our hierarchical, narcissistic-driven society, is readily apparent. Let's jump back 7,000 years to a point in history I am labeling the Great Affliction, or the rise of the first city-state, where an unnatural power structure is about to appear upon the human landscape. A sizable population has gathered in one area in Mesopotamia, where one's primary food source is no longer being accumulated or foraged by each individual for their own consumption, or the consumption of their immediate family. Instead, food is being generated for the entire population by a fixed field farming collective. And here is where the vulnerability arises. At the end of the first harvest, the yield must be rationed equally to those who participated in its production. A leader is established to allocate those rations to the community as well as direct the actions of the farming populace. It may well be that this first leader, man or woman, was an individual with pure intent towards the equal prosperity of the community. But as history shows, this experimental farming collective, with its newly established hierarchy, results in an enormous imbalance of power and subjugation. This newly formed position of leadership is now coveted by someone in the community who looks upon this power gained by this leadership role with envy and disdain. Their narcissistic sense of entitlement tells them that they deserve to be the one in charge, the one receiving the respect and full attention of the community. And with an envious narcissist, deception and even bloodshed is not out of the question. With this desire, this longing for control and validation, the dawn of personal ambition has also found fertile ground within this fixed field farming community, making it indeed the Fertile Crescent. In time, through the direction of this newly established leadership, this collective produces the first militia of organized armed combatants. This may have been merely to protect the crop, at least at first. However, with the arduous nature of fixed field farming, the individuals of this community begin to lament about the grueling and backbreaking work conditions, and some members leave the collective and return to their hunter-gatherer state. This void left in this co-op community now heaps a greater workload on those that remain, who now vocalize their disappointment in the capabilities of the one in charge. The duties of leadership begin to outweigh the covetous utopia this usurper once imagined. And to redeem their reputation, a narcissist is willing to take radical and unethical measures. With a regiment of combatants on hand, soon many of the residents of this new community of Homo sapiens are not voluntary. They are annexed from the regional semi-sedentary communities and nearby hunter-gatherer tribes. These enslaved individuals are compelled to do the grueling field work required to feed the growing population, as well as the tasks of building city walls, which are necessary now that this city-state is creating enemies throughout the land. These slaves are also made to serve the needs and desires of the hierarchy that the individuals in this community have come to rely upon for their survival. Drunk with power, this hierarchy will decree a community religion in order to provoke a dark yet willing devotion given to a newly established priesthood and rulers of the state. To please the hierarchy is to please the gods. As this first city-state sets an example of power, corruption, and religious weaponization, other ambitious narcissists learn the dark secret of centralized power. and more city-states using fixed field farming as a foundation of their power base began to appear in the region. These city-states soon progress in all directions throughout ancient Anatolia and beyond. This new form of power will spread west to Egypt and north to what will become the Greek and Roman societies, and eventually continue further north into the whole of Europe and Asia. This plague of power and subjugation will soon envelop all of humanity. In the ranks of the first city-states are names that are still, to this day, synonymous for their legendary debauchery, overindulgence, brutality, and enslavement. Such names as Babylon, Sodom, and Gomorrah. These are the benchmarks of a true city-state. Here is a compilation of the progression of narcissism throughout humanity now that this foundational power base has been laid. The STEM fields and higher education. Science and the field of higher education gained a foothold within the Greek society in the 6th and 4th centuries BCE, as made distinguished by such philosophers as Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. While not everyone with a higher education is overly judgmental concerning those who are without, the circumstance is worth noting. In all developing societies, there has been an extensive propaganda campaign touting higher education as creating a superior, more respectable individual. Yet, you may notice that speaking in general terms, as one's fund of knowledge increases, their emotional intelligence, or EQ, as well as their social intelligence, often decreases or is left in an infantile state. Again, this is not evident as a whole, but readily apparent. This phenomena often occurs with those educated within the STEM fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The rise of the Industrial Revolution and capitalism. To quote the show Yellowstone, behind every milestone in human history stands a monster. Capitalism, although the best form and function available when a free-roaming egalitarian option is non-existent, relies upon and enables narcissists to emerge as captains of industry, or perhaps to a lesser degree, CEOs of corporations. Some bring useful products and services to market and leave it at that, using capitalism as it was intended, while others operate with malice and an ill intent that feeds upon human frailty with complete disregard. Hollywood controls the narrative. From its inception, Hollywood has been glorifying the narcissistic narrative of gunslingers of the West, gangsters of the 20s, war heroes of all ages, while simultaneously promoting and encouraging celebrity worship. When we look at the central cause of, quote, toxic masculinity in the West, the blame ironically lies squarely upon Hollywood. They enshrine the narrative of the made man that gained power by putting others in their place. In Hollywood's golden age, it was the sole education platform for young, impressionable males lost within their fractured and dysfunctional upbringing. The new narrative pushed by Hollywood is now focused on turning young women into power-wielding, kick-ass girl boss narcissists, which of course will only lead to more division and existential crisis for humanity. But hey, you go, girl. Social media. With the advent of social media came an expansion of the global narcissist machine, where the, quote, average person can monetize and gain social exposure through self-generated drama and self-exploitation, as well as the exploitation of others. In today's platform society, as had been the case with old Hollywood, if one is not achieving greater and greater glory, fame, and fortune, then one is not being narcissistic enough, merely achieving the norm. To prevail in this self-indulgent industry, one must push the envelope for a greater dramatic me. In modern times, the covert narcissistic state has dug their hand deep into the backbone of humanity like an inanimate meat puppet. Dismantling hierarchies now will come at a cost far more devastating than modern-day activists with their domesticated and pampered lifestyle could ever conceive. Once the walls of protection, fabricated by the very hierarchies they oppose, are removed. Yet, nature has a way of correcting such imbalances in its own time. By our own insatiable desire for progress, there is now what scientists call a great filter ahead of us, where we will find ourselves at the mercy of our own creations. Perhaps we will pass through this filter with minimal trauma and anguish, revealing a time of great optimism. Or perhaps it will be a reckoning, a reset beyond the great filter.